Today, we are going to be having a look at the Purchase Order add-on inside of ServiceM8. This add-on is the perfect way for generating and managing your purchase orders from all your jobs all within this easy to use add-on. First up today, we'll spend a bit of time covering the settings and the initial setup of this add-on, including setting up our suppliers, customizing our PDF, and setting up our business details. And then we can look at adding this to a job and generating a few different purchase orders for a few different suppliers. To get started, let's open up our add-ons tab, and then open up our Purchase Orders add-on. Once we arrive at this page, we'll be able to see all the purchase orders we've generated to date, but we'll come back to this at the end of the video and have a bit more of a look at it then. For now, let's move over into the Suppliers section. This page will give us a list of suppliers we currently have set up, along with some key details for each of them, including a supplier name, our key contact's name and phone number, and also a rating which you have set up for this supplier. Let's have a look at how we can add a new supplier, and then later on we can quickly touch on how we would edit an existing supplier. To add a new supplier, we simply need to click on the New Supplier button. From here, we simply need to work through the following details. We recommend filling out as much of this information as possible, so you have easy access to it later on when looking at the purchase order inside of the job card or for referencing later on. To start off, we need to give our supplier a name. In this case, let's go with Zappy Electrical Suppliers. Below this, we have the contact name for whoever we normally talk to at this supplier. In this case, let's just go with Jeff. Next up, we have the rating for our supplier. If, for example, you have multiple suppliers for certain products, this is a great way to easily see which of your suppliers you may want to order your parts from. Potentially one of your suppliers may be extremely quick at getting parts out to you with no issues, so in this case you would give them a higher rating so it's easier to see that you should order your parts from them. For this supplier, let's go ahead and give them a 4-star rating. If we keep moving down, we'll be able to see some standard fields such as phone number, email address, CC email address if we need to make use of it, as well as tax number and the supplier's physical address. I'm going to quickly fill these out now and then we'll move on. Cool. Now you can see we have our phone number, our email address, our tax number, and our supplier address all filled out. So let's move on to the next two sections, which are both related to payment information. For this example, I'm going to leave these blank, but as I mentioned earlier, if you have this information, it's great for you to include it so it will save you time in the long run. The final box we have here is for any notes related to this supplier. So let's say, for example, they're only open weekdays and don't deliver on weekends. This is a great place to make notes of these kind of things, so you have quick access to this information when generating your purchase order. So let's just make a quick note of that. Now that we're happy with all of this, let's go ahead and press save. As you can see here, our new supplier has been added, Zappy Electrical Suppliers. The contact name was Jeff, the phone number's been filled out, and our 4-star rating's also here. If we ever needed to go back and edit a supplier, we can do so by clicking on the blue edit button. Once we're in here, you'll be able to see the exact same information we just spent our time filling out. Since we've made no changes to this, I'm going to go ahead and press cancel. Finally, if you ever need to remove a supplier, you can do so by clicking on the red X next to the edit button. Now that we've covered the suppliers section, let's move into the add-on settings. This page simply allows us to set up all of our company's details so they'll be visible on our purchase order. First up, we can add or change our billing address. In this case, I'm going to leave it as 124 High Street. Below this, we have our delivery address. As it mentions in the blue box above, this will be the default delivery address for all of our purchase orders. Once we move into actually generating our purchase order, we will be able to see that we can change this address to the address of the job or to any other address we may like. For now, I'm just going to copy and paste the above address. Next up is the account's email address. It's worth mentioning that this email address will also be set up as a CC email address for all of your purchase orders, so you will receive a copy to your inbox every time you generate one. In this case, let's go with example@email.com. Below this is the company phone number and tax number. In this case, I'm just going to fill out a phone number. If we continue to scroll down, we'll have our last section, which is related to the purchase order number settings. This is probably a good time to explain how purchase order numbers are generated. By default, they will be made up of the job number, followed by a dash, and then the number of the purchase order. So for example, if we are creating our first purchase order for our job number 50, the purchase order number would be 50-1. If it's the second purchase order for the same job, it would be 50-2, and so on. If we would further like to customize the numbers of our purchase orders, we can also add prefixes and suffixes in this section here. For this example, I'm happy to keep these blank, so I'm just going to go ahead and press save. Now that we've filled out all our company settings, let's move into our PDF settings. So on the left hand side, let's go ahead and press PDF settings. This section gives you as a company a huge amount of flexibility in terms of what you want to be displayed on the generated PDFs of your purchase orders. From here, you can really easily build out a page which displays all the relevant information that your supplier may need. It's worth noting that when you have set up the majority of these fields in this section to what you want displayed on the PDFs, these details will be added automatically to the final purchase order, and you will not be able to make adjustments to them within the job card. As you can see, we've made it really simple to change which details you would like to display. To show and hide details on the final PDF, all you would need to do is change the toggle next to the corresponding piece of information. Let's have a look at our heading section first. This group of toggles will allow us to modify which of our details from our company are displayed on our PDF. Here we can choose to show or hide our company name, tax number, billing address, delivery address, accounts email, and phone number. While it's likely you want to show all of these details, you do have the option of hiding them if you wish. If you scroll down a bit, you'll be able to see a live example of what our final PDFs will look like. As you can see, it is currently showing all the details which we had just mentioned, as well as the date and the purchase order number. If we decided we didn't want to show any of these details, we could do so by toggling it off in the above section. Let's have a quick look at how that would work. So if we scroll up a bit, we'll be able to toggle on and off some of these details and see what would happen. So as you can see here, billing address is in the bottom right hand corner. If we decide for some reason we don't want to show that, we can move up here to the billing address toggle and turn it off. As you can see, it disappears from the final PDF. For now, let's turn that back on. And as one more example, let's have a look over here to our phone number on the right hand side. If we want to turn off our company number, we can do so by toggling it off. It'll disappear from the final PDF, but for now let's leave it on. Another great way to customize these PDFs is through the use of custom fields. To add a custom field, we just need to find the blue Add Custom Field button. So once we're here, custom fields are made up of 3 different parts. We'll have the name or the title, which will be displayed on the final PDF. We have the type of custom field we want to add. There's a few different variations we have here, so let's have a look at those. So we can add text, we can add a text box, which is the exact same as text, just in a larger box. We can add a number, we can add a label, or we can add a drop-down selection. The majority of these are going to give us further options once we go into our job card and generate our final purchase order. The last thing we have here is the required checkbox. By ticking this box, we ensure that we have to fill out this piece of information in the job card before we can generate our final PDF. So as an example, let's add a couple of these. First up, let's add an account number. So let's assume we have the same account number for all of our suppliers. We can go ahead and add that so it'll always be on our final generated PDFs. So let's give it a name. In this case, account number. Let's select which type we want it to be. If, for example, this account number changes between our suppliers, I would set this as a text box so we can fill it out each time on our job card. Or if it's going to be static and it doesn't change, I would set this up as a label. In this case, let's do a label. So let's give it our number. So let's just say 78965. And then go ahead and press save. As you can see here, our custom field gets added to the custom field section. It's also worth noting we already have one set up, which is the approved by custom field, which is set up as a text box. For this example, I might go ahead and remove this and change it so it's set up to be a drop-down. So to do this, we go up again to add custom field, select the box, give it the name approved by. We can select the type. In this case, let's go with a drop-down. Here you can set up which options will be available in the drop-down. From here, we're going to add a few different members of our team for whoever wants to approve this purchase order. So let's just go with John and Sam. I don't want to make this required, so I'll leave that blank and I'll go ahead and press save. Now that we've added in this second custom label, let's go ahead and have a look at how we can make some changes to the table that's displayed on this PDF. So if we scroll down here, once again, we'll be able to see some more toggles, and this will be related to the table section. Similar to the header section above, we'll be able to toggle on and off which things we would like to display in our final PDF. In this case, you can see we have two that have been toggled on. So we have our item quantity, which will be displayed in the middle of our table. We have the item price. We can also choose to show our item cost if we would like to, as well as our item code. In this case, I'm going to leave both of these off. Something else you should be aware of, if you've toggled on anything which includes a currency, you will have the option of changing this currency in the final job card. So in this case, it's pounds. Later on, we'll be able to change that if for some reason we needed to. Once again, we can also add custom fields to this section. So for this example, let's go ahead and add one of these. To do so, once again, we press the blue Add Custom Field button. As you'll probably notice, we have the exact same selection as we did in the previous section. We have the name or the title, we have the type, and we have the required button. In this case, let's make a section so we can add any notes to these items. We'll give it the name notes. We'll select the type to be a text box so we can add as many notes as we would like. And we can go ahead and press save. We can scroll down again here. And once again, you can see that our custom field has been added. It's worth noting that these custom fields you add to the table section will be on a line-by-line basis. So for example, we'll have a note section for the first product and the second product, as well as any other products following. Now that we've configured all of our settings, let's go ahead and jump into a job so we can start looking at generating some purchase orders. Let's move into our dispatch board. Then we can move over here to the right and open up job number 50 for Soft Rolls Bakery. As you can see here, for the description, we need to install 6 downlights. If we move over to quotes and invoicing, we can see that we've already added the downlights as a line item in the quantity of 6. From here, we can move into the add-ons and move down to purchase orders. First things first, we need to select our supplier. We can do this by moving over to this drop-down menu, clicking on that, and selecting our supplier. It's worth noting that if we did want to add a new supplier, we could also do that here as well. In this case, let's use the one we've already set up, so Zappy Electrical Suppliers. Once we open this, we'll be able to see a bunch of useful information related to that supplier, which we set up previously. As you can see here, we have the notes. So we added these a second ago, which is only open on weekends. You have the address, the tax number, the email, the phone number, the rating, and the contact name. Below this, as we mentioned earlier, you can select the currency that the final purchase order will show. As an example, you may be working in the UK, but your supplier is based in Europe. If they needed purchase orders to be displayed in euros, you could go ahead and change this here, but for this example, we're just going to leave it as pounds. Below this, we have our approved by section. This was based on the custom field that we set up in the PDF settings. So in this case, we can choose John or Sam, which were the predefined settings that we set up. Let's leave it as John for now. Moving down here, we'll be able to see a list of all the materials we've added to our job card. For now, we've only added the downlights, but there are going to be times when you want to add extra materials right when you're doing your purchase order. So we can do that simply by pressing the blue Add Material Not on the Job button. From here, we have two options. We can either search our system for an existing material and add that, or we can create a new material. For this first example, let's search our system and add a product that way. To do so, we go ahead and click on this box. We search for our item number. In this case, I want to add some cable, so CBL. We click on that. And now we'll have the option of adding this material to this purchase order. One other thing you may notice is this green Add Material to Job Card button, which has appeared. We know that sometimes when you add materials to your purchase orders, you may want to add them to the job card. There's also going to be other times where you don't want to add them. That's why you have the option of doing this simply by pressing on the green Add Material to Job Card button. As this is just some cable, I'm not going to add it to the job card in this case. The next step in creating a purchase order is selecting which materials we actually want for this particular purchase order. To do this, we need to select them on the right hand side here in one of these checkboxes. For this example, let's add the downlight as well as the cable. From here we can scroll down. Next up, we can set the date for which this fulfillment is required by. In this case, let's say the 15th. Below this, we have the delivery address. This is the delivery address that we set up when we configured the add-on previously. As I mentioned, you'll have the option of changing this if you wish. To do so, you can either select the blue button here for Use Job Address. This will take the address that's on the job card and add it to this box. Or alternatively, if you don't want either of these addresses, you can click in the box and change all of this manually. Scrolling down, you'll be able to see that we can add notes to this purchase order. To do so, we just click in the box, add any notes, and they'll be visible on the final PDF. In this case, let's just say be careful of the dog. If we're happy with all of this, we can go ahead and press Create Purchase Order. Cool, now that we've got our green tick, let's go ahead and open this back up so we can have a look at our purchase order. So let's close down these, reopen up the job card so we have the fresh data. And as you can see here, our purchase order has been added to the job card. We can simply open this by clicking on it so we can take a look at it. This is going to be the exact same PDF that will be emailed to your supplier. As you can see here, it has the supplier name, the delivery address, billing address, and all the other information we've filled out, as well as our 2 custom fields, which is the account number and who approved the purchase order. If you look down the bottom, you can also see that our note has been added. Let's have a look at generating one more purchase order for a different supplier. So let's close down this and move into our add-ons and back down to purchase orders. Now that we're opening this up for a second time, we'll be able to see a few things have changed. But for now, let's go ahead and select a supplier. In this case, let's go Acme Hardware and Parts. We'll leave the currency as is, we'll leave approved by John. And the next thing we want to take a look at is this orange text right here. As you may remember, this orange text was not on the previous purchase order. What this will tell you is when you previously ordered this material and which purchase order number that came from. As you can see here, we previously ordered this on purchase order number 50-1. This makes it really easy to see which materials you've already ordered or which ones you may still need to order. As we've already ordered this, let's go ahead and add a new material. So once again, we'll go to the Add Material Not on Job button. We'll search for another material. In this case, I want to add a light switch. So we'll search for it and click on that one. As this is something I do want to charge the client for, let's go ahead and press Add Material to Job Card. One other thing which I didn't touch on previously is this notes section below each of our materials. This was something we configured when we set up the PDF in the first section, and it's a great place to make notes for separate materials which will be displayed on the final PDF. For this example, let's just say we want the light switch to be white. We'll select this as the material we want on this purchase order. Scrolling down, we'll select our fulfillment date. We'll leave the address as is, and we'll leave the notes as is. The next thing that's changed compared to the previous purchase order is we now have this section down the bottom. This section will display any previous purchase orders we've generated for this particular job. From here, you can also email this to the supplier, as well as mark whether you've received the products or not. If you do press the email to the supplier button, it will also automatically check the mark emailed box. Once we're happy with this, we can go ahead and create our purchase order. It's also worth noting, if you do want to create and email the purchase order straight away, you can do so by pressing this button here. For now, we're just going to create the purchase order. Cool, now that we're happy with this, we'll close this down, reopen it with the fresh data. Once again, we'll open up our purchase order. From here you can see our new supplier has been set up, as well as our material, and you can also see the note we added for this particular product. In this case it was white switch. If we're happy with all of this, let's close this down and have a look at one last thing. So let's move back to the add-ons, reopen up purchase orders, and let's have a quick look at this page here. So as I mentioned earlier, this is going to give you a list of all the purchase orders you've generated to date. As you can see here, our 2 new ones, 50-1 and 50-2 are here. From here, you can also do a few other things. So you can download any purchase orders that you've already generated. You can delete them. You can mark the products as received. You can add a delivery reference, a delivery date, as well as create a new purchase order. One thing I'll quickly mention is that you can see that these have blue download buttons. If we scroll down here, some of these are missing the download button. This is because this is the second version of purchase orders. If you've previously created any purchase orders on the old purchase order system, you won't be able to download them from this page. They will still be available from within the job cards though. If we scroll back up here, we'll be able to see how we can add new purchase orders right from this page. As you can see here, it's very similar to what we've already done, so we can select our supplier. We'll get the details related to that supplier. The one thing that is different is that we'll have to select our own purchase order number. Normally, it's much better to generate your purchase orders from within a job card. This is just because they're much easier to track and you don't have to set up your own purchase order number. If we keep scrolling down, you can see all the other details are the exact same as what we've already looked at. As I don't want to set up a purchase order here, I'm just going to go ahead and press cancel. And that's it for the purchase orders add-on. We really tried to make this add-on extremely convenient and easy to use, no matter what the situation. We know this will definitely help you to speed up the generation and management of your purchase orders, and we really hope you enjoy it.